Dragon Ball's timeline begins a long time ago, over 150 million years before the first age. To be clear, ages are the term for years in Dragon Ball. The universes are formed, all 18 of them at the time. People say Zeno created these universes, but we have no reason to actually believe that. He rules over them, but creation and ruling aren't the same thing. You also have the potential birth of Buu, not Majin Buu yet due to the lack of Bibidi. I say potentially because Buu being created by Bibidi like the manga says, or existing since the universes began as Toriyama said in an interview, are conflicting claims. The only way to reconcile these ideas is that Buu existed since Universe 7 was created, but Majin Buu was created when Bibidi took control of him. This should also be the time period that the Super Dragon Balls were made by the dragon god Zalama. The divine calendar isn't very well explained, but considering the creation of the Super Dragon Balls happened in year 41 and 42 of the divine calendar, which seems extremely early, it should be in this section of the timeline. Jumping to around 75 million to 150 million years before the first age, we have some contentious event placements, with Moro's first appearance being 10 million years before his Dragon Ball Super arc, and Majin Buu's first attack being 5 million years before the events of Dragon Ball. You can calculate a minimum age range for both Elder Kai and Beerus. You see, Elder Kai is 15 generations before Shin, but what makes a generation for a Kaioshin? Well, in this case, we have two options: 5 million years or 10 million years. Shin clearly wasn't around for Moro's first attack, but Grand Supreme Kai and South Supreme Kai were, both of whom were removed from their positions prematurely by the attack of Majin Buu. So if we use a 5 million year generation, we get a 75 million year old Elder Kai, and with a 10 million year generation, we get a 150 million year old Elder Kai. We also know that Elder Kai was sealed away in the Z-Sword by Beerus, making Beerus a similar age range of 75 million to 150 million years old. Remember though, this range for Beerus is based off of Elder Kai, so it's possible Elder Kai wasn't Beerus's first Kaioshin. Also important to note that Beerus changes who his life is connected to when a new Kaioshin is appointed, which is why his life is connected to Shin's and not Elder Kai's or Grand Supreme Kai's anymore. This is also the period in time where Namekians are first confirmed to exist in Universe 7. You see, Elder Kai knows about the Dragon Balls and Namekians, meaning they existed during his time. This would also mean that potentially in his lifetime or sometime before it, the Namekians entered Universe 7 from their original realm as described in Dragon Ball Super. Finally, this is where I would tentatively place the erasure of Universes 13 through 18, as that event seemingly happened in Beerus's lifetime. Then we jump to 10 million years before the first age. This is where we have the previously mentioned first encounter with Moro, where the Grand Supreme Kai seals away Moro's magic in the hopes of stopping the Planet Eater once and for all. This does also cost most of Grand Supreme Kai's godly power though, which is gonna be an issue in 5 million years when Majin Buu, who is currently under Bibidi's control, attacks the 5 Supreme Kais. While Shin, the East Supreme Kai, manages to escape and live, the others weren't so fortunate. The West and North Supreme Kais were killed, while the South Supreme Kai and the Grand Supreme Kai were absorbed by Buu, forced to remain alive, but left in a perpetual slumber. Afterwards, Bibidi goes on to destroy hundreds of worlds, but Buu was too much for him to control all the time, so when he needed a break, he would seal the monster. Eventually, Earth became Bibidi's next target, and the sealed Buu was brought there. Luckily, Shin was able to kill Bibidi before Buu could be released again, and Majin Buu was left sealed in a shell on Earth. Shin didn't dare to move the creature in case it would break the seal. That's right, the coolest shit that Shin's ever done was off screen. Then we jump forward a lot, to roughly 200 to 300 years before the first age, based on Vegeta's 1,000 year statement. The first Super Saiyan, Yamoshi, appears. He is not a Super Saiyan god like some people incorrectly say, but I've already covered that in another video. Yamoshi rebelled against the increasingly evil other Saiyans alongside 5 comrades. When the rebellion was failing and his back was against the wall, he transformed into the first Super Saiyan, wiping out countless opposing Saiyans before eventually running out of energy and being killed. After Yamoshi's death, his soul wandered the universe in search of 6 Saiyans to perform the ritual to make the new savior of the Saiyans, the Super Saiyan God. Now we get into the numbered years, which are going to be a little bit easier to explain, starting with age 261, when a storm ravaged the entirety of planet Namek. One Namekian named Kata sent his child to Earth in a spaceship to save him from the devastation. This was the nameless Namekian, who would eventually become Kami and Piccolo. In age 450, Master Roshi begins his training with Master Karin, and in age 453 is finally able to obtain this sacred water, thus completing his training with the god of martial arts. Age 461 is the year that Kami becomes Kami, the god of Earth. The title Guardian of Earth is just a dub thing to avoid the use of religious connotations. This would also be around the time that he dispelled his evil half from his body in the form of Piccolo Daimao, which is why this is the same year King Piccolo was sealed by Master Mutaito, the martial arts master who originally trained Master Roshi and Master Shen, who dies as a result of using the sealing technique. With King Piccolo finally sealed, Master Roshi makes sure to personally bury the rice cooker containing the Demon King deep in the ocean floor where it can hopefully never be opened again. Then 9 years into being Earth's god, in age 470, Kami creates the Dragon Balls, something he does to fulfill some sort of racial memory as opposed to making them entirely from his own design. Then sometime around age 550, Planet Sadala, the original home of the Saiyans, is destroyed in a Saiyan civil war. With no world left to call home, the Saiyans invade Planet Plant. Eventually, they conquer the new planet and make it their new home, with the finishing touch being to rename the world Planet Vegeta. Then 100 years later, in age 650, we have the very first Tenkaichi Budokai on Earth. At this point, the new tournament series was scheduled to happen once every 5 years, as it wasn't as popular as it would become later on. While this may not seem too important, this event's inception sets up many of the most important story events in the entire series. Then we finally get to the 700s, which is where most of the events of Dragon Ball actually take place. Let's start with age 732, where we get the birth of Dragon Ball Super's Broly and Vegeta IV. Remember, Vegeta is 5 years older than Goku, and it's even reaffirmed in the movie as well, so while Broly and Vegeta were next to each other in their pods, Goku was yet to even be conceived. This year also marks the retirement of King Cold, and the transition of leadership to his son Frieza, who is now in charge of the Saiyans. This is also when Broly's power is deemed to be too big a threat to King Vegeta's rule, and so he's exiled to planet Vampa. His father Paragus following closely behind him on a stolen ship with Beats on board. Though Beats is ultimately killed once Paragus discovers they're trapped on planet Vampa and they need to conserve resources until they're rescued. Then, 5 years later, in age 737, Goku is born. But unlike what most people think, this isn't when planet Vegeta actually gets destroyed, since that date was likely retconned. In Dragon Ball Minus, Goku was stated to be in his incubator for 3 years, so that would mean the destruction of planet Vegeta would be in age 740. Now, I will preface this all by saying that age 737 could still be the year that planet Vegeta was destroyed, since Dragon Ball Super Broly doesn't say how long Goku was in the incubator for. But Beerus' prophecy of the Super Saiyan God makes that really unlikely. You see, Beerus receives the prophecy of the Super Saiyan God from the Oracle Fish 39 years before the events of Battle of Gods, which would be age 739. And since Beerus didn't know if Frieza destroyed the Saiyans while he was asleep or not, the destruction of planet Vegeta in age 740 still makes sense, or at the very earliest 739 if we just use the prophecy and ignore Minus entirely. Regardless of if it's 739 or 740, this time period is when all of Dragon Ball Minus happens, and it's also when Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, the actual comedic prequel series, takes place. This portion of the timeline is where things become a lot easier for you to follow and for me to explain, because it covers most of the main series that you've already watched or read. But there are a few time skips here and there that I'll have to cover that might not be as clear. However, I already made a full video talking about every time skip in Dragon Ball, so I'll be brief in this one. Go watch the other video if you want that information. In between age 740 and age 749, we have the death of Grandpa Gohan at the hands of Goku. Notably, Gohan knowing of the Ozaru's existence implies he saw and survived it at least once, which should mean he was either caught off guard or let himself be killed, either being extremely tragic. This is also the time period when Bulma creates the Dragon Radar and collects the 2- and 5-star Dragon Balls on her own. She found the 2-star Dragon Ball in her basement and the 5-star Dragon Ball in a cave north of West City. In age 749, the entire Pilaf arc up to Goku training with Roshi takes place. Goku meets Bulma, Roshi, Oolong, Yamcha, Puar, Chi-Chi, the Ox King, and Krillin this year. This is also the year for the very first wish on the Dragon Balls in the series, and it's for a pair of underwear. Then in age 750, a lot happens. It starts with the rest of Goku and Krillin's training, the entire 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, which Goku loses to Jackie Chun, and the entire Red Ribbon Army arc. Importantly, this is the arc where Goku trains with Master Karin, the god of martial arts, and reunites with Grandpa Gohan for one final time, when excluding anime filler, that is. The events of this year end when Goku goes to travel the world for 3 years to train for the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. This is where we get our very first time skip in the series, a 3-year time skip between the two Tenkaichi Budokais, and it's the most common length of time skip in Dragon Ball, so get used to it. So in between age 750 and 753, Goku is traveling around the world and training as instructed by Master Roshi. Krillin and Yamcha train under Master Roshi directly to prepare for the tournament, and Roshi trains in secret as well to re-enter the tournament under the alias of Jackie Chun. Finally, age 753 encompasses the entirety of the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, which Goku once again loses, but this time to Ten Shinhan. It also contains the entirety of the Piccolo Daimao arc, ending with Goku beginning his training on Kami's lookout. This year also includes the first deaths and resurrections of Krillin, Master Roshi, and Chaozu. Once again, we have a 3-year time skip till the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. Between age 753 and 756, Goku trains with Kami and Mr. Popo to defeat the reincarnation of King Piccolo. At the same time, below the lookout, Ten Shinhan, Krillin, Yamcha, and Chaozu climb Karin's tower to train with the god of martial arts, eventually leaving the tower to travel the world and train on their own to refine what they've learned. Once we reach age 756, Piccolo Jr. and Goku have their final battle, ending in Goku's victory and his first ever win at a Tenkaichi Budokai. This is also the year that Goku and Chi-Chi get married, and they, do some other stuff, too. The next year, age 757, is when Gohan is born, specifically May 18th, according to the Daizenshu timeline. This is, of course, during another time skip, the 5-year time skip between the end of Dragon Ball and the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. So in between age 756 and 761, Yamcha and Bulma break up, Ten Shinhan trains while traveling the world, and Lunch chases after him, never to be seen again. Once we're out of the time skip, age 761 is the year that Raditz attacks the Earth and is killed by Piccolo. Goku sacrifices himself so Raditz would die, and so he also dies for the first time. The year ends with Ten Shinhan, Krillin, Yamcha, Chaozu, and Yajirobe training with Kami and Mr. Popo before traveling the world to train on their own with what they've learned. A trend in Dragon Ball if you haven't noticed. At the same time, Goku travels Snake Way, but due to Raditz arriving at the end of age 761, he doesn't finish his journey this year. It's important to mention that the Daizenshu timeline that I keep referencing for this video is an amalgamation of a bunch of different continuities in the series. I'm focusing on the manga here, so things like the humans training with Kami in 762 and not 761 isn't really reflected in the manga at all. If anything, it's implied they started training a few days after Goku's death. Just wanted that to be clear going forward. But let's move to age 762, which is a pretty damn busy year all around. Goku finally arrives on King Kai's planet to train, learning the Kaioken and Genki Dama during this time. The Z Fighters continue their training until Nappa and Vegeta arrive on Earth. The rest of the Saiyan arc takes place, and this arc marks Goku's first revival. Yamcha, Ten Shinhan, and Piccolo die for the first time, while Chaozu dies for the second time, meaning Earth's Dragon Balls can't revive him. Goku arrives at the battlefield and defeats Nappa, who's killed by Vegeta. In the later half of the year, the entire Frieza saga takes place, as well as the Super Saiyan form reappearing for the first time since Yamoshi. Vegeta dies and is revived for the first time. All the Namekians die and are revived, though the Grand Elder dies again shortly after being revived. Notably, Namekians of Elder Suno's village aren't revived due to them being killed by Vegeta. This is also when Krillin is killed for the second time and Piccolo is revived for his first. In the following year of age 763, Cell arrives in the main timeline in Future Trunks' time machine, which was pre-programmed to arrive in this age for some unexplained reason. During this year, Yamcha and Ten Shinhan are revived for the first time, Chaozu and Krillin are revived for the second time, and importantly, all revivals were done with the use of the Namekian Dragon Balls. Afterwards, the Namekians leave Earth for New Namek though. Going to age 764, Future Trunks arrives and kills Frieza, giving him his first death and killing King Cold as well. Goku arrives back on Earth and is informed of the android threat by Trunks, which kicks off the entire Cell saga, But that's not all, because we have a future timeline to discuss as well. In age 764 of the future timeline, Goku uses instant transmission to teleport to Earth, and he kills Mecha Frieza and King Cold on his own. In both timelines, we have another 3-year time skip from age 764 to 767. In the main timeline, everyone trains. Notably, Vegeta doesn't train in space like the anime mistakenly shows, but instead, he trains in the newly built gravity room on Earth that he requested. Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan train together, and in the manga, Goku is a Super Saiyan for this training. In both timelines though, age 766 is the year that Trunks is born. But later this year in the future timeline, Goku dies of the heart virus due to a cure not existing yet. Then things get hectic for both timelines in age 767. This is the year that Mr. Satan earns the title of Strongest Under the Heavens by winning his first Tenkaichi Budokai, the 24th. It's unclear if he won the tournament in both timelines or just the present though. To quickly cover the future timeline, this is when androids 17 and 18 appear, killing all the Z fighters except future Gohan, who barely survives and with Bulma's help tries to gather the Dragon Balls to fix things before Piccolo dies. But they're too late as the Pilaf gang uses the Dragon Balls to wish to be young again. Then Piccolo dies and so does Kami, making the Dragon Balls inert permanently. In the present, the events of the Cell Saga take place. Notably, the introduction of forms beyond Super Saiyan, like the Super Saiyan Grades and Super Saiyan 2. This is also when Kami and Piccolo merge into one again, with Kami being replaced by Dende as the God of Earth, so they'll still have Dragon Balls. This is also the first death and revival of future Trunks and Android 17. But more importantly, this was Goku's second death. Even if Earth's Dragon Balls could revive him, they can't, by the way. He wants to stay dead since he feels like he attracts threats to the Earth, and also believing that Gohan is more than capable of protecting the world in his absence. Then, at some point later this year, Goten is born. Following the Cell Saga, we have the second longest time skip between manga chapters in the entire series, the 7-year time skip between the Cell Saga and the Buu Saga, which takes us all the way to age 774. In between age 767 and 774, a lot happens off screen, like Krillin and Android 18 getting married in age 770 and their daughter Marin being born in age 771. At some point, Goku and Vegeta teach themselves Super Saiyan 2, with Goku going further beyond and creating Super Saiyan 3. Then there's age 774, the year the Buu Saga takes place. This year has Mr. Satan win his second Tenkaichi Budokai ever, the 25th. That means this guy's won twice as many world tournaments as Goku. Notable events to keep track of here are Vegeta's second death and his sacrifice against Buu, and Goku's second revival, and Elder Kai's first death, sacrificing his life to revive Goku. The entire Earth is destroyed by Buu along with everyone on it. The only ones to escape are Mr. Satan, Dende, Goku, and Vegeta. This time it's easier to say who didn't die. The Earth is later restored with the Namekian Dragon Balls alongside all of those who died, including characters that died directly to Buu. Also, Vegeta gets revived, and even Elder Kai. Luckily, since the Namekian Dragon Balls were used, any character that's already been revived was able to be revived again. After the Buu Saga, there's a 2-year time skip to the 2008 Yosun Goku special in age 776, which can be regarded as part of the main Dragon Ball continuity, as it reveals to us that Vegeta has a living relative in the form of his younger brother, Tarbal, who is casually mentioned in Dragon Ball Super Broly, as well as the introduction of Goku's job as a radish farmer. But more importantly, Toriyama's direct involvement in writing this OVA story pretty much solidifies it as canon, so I don't know why anyone says that it isn't. After the OVA, another 2 years pass before we get the Battle of Gods arc in age 778. This year is the first time the Super Saiyan God has ever occurred. This is the year that Beerus finally wakes up after going to sleep for 39 years, and it's also assumed that this is the year that Gohan and Videl got married. Then in age 779, we have another busy year. It begins in the Resurrection of F arc, when Goku and Vegeta begin to train under Whis. Vegeta and Goku learn how to use Super Saiyan God at will and merge it with their Super Saiyan form to make Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, aka Super Saiyan Blue. Frieza is revived for the first time, only to be killed for the second time, but not before training and creating a new transformation, Golden Frieza. This is also when the very underwhelming third death of Piccolo happens, and his revival takes place sometime this year as well, off screen. It's important to note he was revived with the Namekian Dragon Balls, since Earth's Dragon Balls can no longer revive him. Next is the Universe 6 Tournament arc, which is the first introduction of the multiverse to most of the main cast who are from Universe 7. 7. Universe 7 wins the tournament against Universe 6, the reward being the Super Dragon Balls for Beerus, who used them to revive the Earth in Universe 6 for his brother. During this arc, Zeno is in Universe 7 for the first time we ever know about. Just so you're aware, the anime has a use of Shenron before the tournament with Universe 6, which would push all of Super forward 1 year, but that seems like a Toei mistake, and I wouldn't take it too seriously. Remember, the Dragon Ball started working again after only 8 months in original Dragon Ball, so an early Shenron use has happened before. Then Future Trunks returns to the main timeline once again, the entirety of the Future Trunks arc happens, the main timeline ends up with another Zeno as a result of the destruction of Trunks' timeline, the Zamasu of the main timeline dies here before gaining immortality, and finally this is also the arc that introduces Super Saiyan Rose and Super Saiyan Ikari, at least in the anime, to the series. Then we get to age 780. The easiest thing to mention is in the future timeline, this is the year that future Gohan is finally killed by the androids, leaving Trunks as the sole protector of that timeline. In the main timeline, the Tournament of Power happens. This arc results in the erasure and revival of universes 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10, and 11. Frieza also has his second revival in this arc. This is also the time that we see Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, the presumed grade 2 variant of Super Saiyan Blue, as well as Super Saiyan Berserker, Ultra Instinct Sign, and Ultra Instinct. You could also include the introduction of numerous character-specific forms in this tournament, but honestly that doesn't seem too important to mention here. This is also the year that Bra is born. Later in the year, Broly and Paragus are found on Vampa by Chilai and Lemmo, kicking off the events of Dragon Ball Super Broly. This is the first time we see the Ikari form, not to be confused with the previously mentioned Super Saiyan Ikari, and Broly's full-powered Super Saiyan, not to be confused with the official name of Super Saiyan Grade 4. With that, we get to the manga-only arcs, with the ancient evil Moro freeing himself from prison. There is a ton of vagueness with the timeline placements here, but I'll do my best to explain it. While the Moro arc likely starts in age 780, it possibly extends into age 781. We know that some time has passed. People think the arc starts right after the end of Dragon Ball Super Broly due to Goku teleporting back to Earth, seemingly following the end of the movie where he leaves Vampa, which is fine, but there's an unspecified amount of time between Broly being teleported back to Vampa and Goku checking in on him. There's also a 2-month training section in the middle of the arc, so that's why many, including myself, believe it bleeds into age 781, especially considering how much has already happened in age 780. Then the Granola arc gets even more confusing. The arc starts a few months after the Moro arc. Then later a few weeks pass, then time passes, which is the worst, because saying some time passed is used to say there was a 4-year time skip between the Buu Saga and Battle of Gods at the beginning of Dragon Ball Super. Personally, I think this is a bigger time skip than people make it out to be because of the Granola arc's ending happening at the same time as the events of Superheroes beginning. That would mean even though we first see Granola in age 781, the arc itself shouldn't conclude till mid to late age 782. This will make more sense as we move into Superhero though. You see, there's a 9-month gap in Dragon Ball Super Superhero, the 3-month prison sentence of Dr. Hedo, and the 6 months afterwards that he used to create the Gammas in Cell Max. So the events of Dr. Hedo's arrest by Goten and Trunks likely still occur in age 782, while the major events of the movie and arc, like the battle against Cell Max or Goku and Vegeta's sparring match, take place in age 783. This is why Granola has to have a bigger time skip than we thought, especially since everyone hasn't seen Goku or Vegeta in a long time, and more importantly, Pan's age means that the major events of this movie or arc have to happen in age 783. But that's not where the timeline ends. The main timeline, for now, ends 1 year after Dragon Ball Super Superhero in age 784, when the 28th Tenkaichi Budokai takes place and Goku leaves the tournament early to train Oob, who is the reincarnation of Kid Buu. The future timeline also continues, as this is the year future Trunks uses the time machine to go to the past and warn of the incoming android threat. Age 785 is when we get a new timeline to talk about, Cell's timeline. In Cell's timeline, future Trunks returns to use the blueprints of the androids he found in the main timeline to deactivate and destroy them. In the future timeline, future Trunks comes back after the defeat of Perfect Cell, leading to him killing the androids with his own power. Age 788 is when Cell awakens in both timelines. In the future timeline, Trunks is strong enough to kill him outright, but in Cell's timeline, Trunks is no match for Cell, leading to him being killed and Cell stealing the time machine to absorb androids 17 and 18. Sometime around age 795 in the future timeline, future Trunks is trained by Supreme Kai. They face off against Babidi and Dabura, stopping the resurrection resurrection of Majin Buu, but at the cost of Supreme Kai's life, and subsequently Beerus's life as well. This is also the year in the anime that Goku Black goes around killing all the Supreme Kais of every universe, leading to the death of every god of destruction and the deactivation of every angel. Then in age 796, the events of the Future Trunks arc play out in the future timeline, which is the majority of what you watched or read. This year marks the end of the future timeline as Zeno completely erases the whole timeline. Notably, 2 other timelines are created as well, a branch of the main timeline where Beerus doesn't erase Zamasu, and a branch of the future timeline before Goku Black appears that Future Trunks and Future Mai choose to live in, alongside their alternate timeline counterparts. So that's where it ends, age 784 for the main timeline and age 796 for the future timeline, with a couple of other timelines thrown in there along the way. Once Dime is out, I'll update this timeline to include it once we know where it actually takes place in the timeline, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And also check out this video on the real world history of Dragon Ball, and thank you so very much for watching.